All right, great to have you here with us this morning. United they stand, and taking the stand they are, as unions from right across this country prepare for a showdown with Stephen Harper leading into the next election. The charge being led by a Quebec union, FTQ, which intends to do everything it possibly can to stop the Conservatives. John Robson joining us this morning in Ottawa. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Let's talk about unions. We know what kind of problems they can cause here in Ontario. They somehow managed to get one of the most corrupt governments ever on the entire planet re-elected, not just re-elected, but into a majority status. So we know the influence unions can have. So those that write this kind of rhetoric off, I say don't write any of it off. But nonetheless, it's the Fédération des Travailleurs, and pardon my French, to Quebec. They intend to do everything they can to stop Stephen Harper. How seriously should Harper take this?
I don't think he should take it very seriously for a variety of reasons. Obviously, starting with Quebec itself, the FTQ being a Quebec-based union, they've only got 5 seats in Quebec, and they do not really expect to win a whole bunch more. The places that they win seats are not places where unions can swing the vote. If they could, the Tories wouldn't have seats anyway. Because the larger point here is that the idea that unions have suddenly decided to stop Stephen Harper is fatuous. Obviously, they have hated him and the Tories from the word go with a bitter passion substantially unrelated to the actual performance of the Conservatives when it comes either to government policy or to personnel issues in particular. I mean, one of the curious things about unions these days is that they're not just saying, get Harper because he's a lousy employer. They're saying, get Harper because he's a no-good right-wing wretch. And especially because unions are essentially based in the public sector these days in Canada. Private sector unionization is dwindling very rapidly, and the public sector is still extremely strong, something close to 80%. So the best place in which to fight the policy agenda of a government in Canada now is from within the government, which is a very strange state of affairs. But again, these people hated the Tories in 2004, they hated them in 2006, they hated them in 2008. It's almost a sociological thing, because if you look at the actual policies of the Harper government, they haven't really downsized. Their spending on left-wing policy, they pretty much hit the whole checklist. Abortion on demand, we're cool with that. Gay marriage, we're cool with that. Slashing defense, we're cool with that. Ramping up social spending, we're cool with that. So I don't see what there is to dislike. But they also haven't, emptied out the public service. Often you get more restraint from a Liberal, even an NDP government. So, but if they could do this, they already would have. Union membership may be compulsory in a large number of fields in Canada, especially public sector, but that doesn't mean that the people who are forced to join the union are therefore forced to believe what the union says. The Harper government won a majority. The administration got a majority in Parliament in 2011 because, among other things, a lot of people who are nominally union members vote Conservative. And so the union going to them, the kind of people who would vote against the Conservatives, it's not because they're union members, it's because they're left-wing. And so they would do this anyway. And the people who are simply union members because they have to be aren't going to do it regardless.
Right. But then you get guys like Sid Ryan of the Ontario Federation League also planning to jump in. They caused a lot of problems for Tim Hudak, and they mobilized, they were very organized, and he himself apparently has nothing better to do. His books are in shambles, the union's in a lot of trouble, but he has made it his mission that he is going to take his fight to the federal level. And I know that there are different laws in the provinces than there are at the federal level as to what unions can do, but he has said that he's going to mobilize and take his fight to the federal level, and he probably will.
Well, Kizzy Vien, I'm sure, is the Harper attitude. Tim Hudak was a self-inflicted wound. The Tory party chose him. They kept him. He was a rotten campaigner. The unions hated Mike Harris more than they hated Tim Hudak. I mean, they hate everybody, right? The union movement is remarkable, the politicized branch of it, for the venomous hostility exhibits all the time. I just want to ask these people, what's the matter with you? Why are you so angry? Why are you always imagining that terrible, terrible things are happening? But they had teachers in classrooms propagandizing against Mike Harris, telling to children that he would do terrible things to them. But Mike Harris won 2 terms because he was staunch. I just, this Sid Ryan, he's a paper tiger. The Liberals in Ontario are beholden to the unions to such an extent that they had to give them what they wanted. But just wait, austerity is coming. And when it happens, that they'll learn the old Charlie Chan saying that making a bedfellow of a serpent is no protection against snake bite. The unions will discover that they don't have that much leverage even with Kathleen Wynne. They have none with Stephen Harper. If they could elect Justin Trudeau, they would, but they can't. They just Tories don't have that much influence on the political process. And if they act disruptively, have the stone-throwing riot kind of scenes, that will make people vote Tory. People hate that stuff.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting because you don't seem to get the same kind of outrage that we saw in the Mike Harris days. I remember being at Queen's Park when horses were being attacked, where there were all-out riots with, unions like OCAP and all these poverty groups and unions who were they were there on the front lawns of Queen's Park every single day rioting against Mike Harris. We don't get that outrage with this provincial Liberal government. They don't seem to be bothered by the billions and billions and billions that has been literally thrown down the drain by this government that could have, given them more raises that they don't deserve, or could have built housing for the poor and could have done all these wonderful things for infrastructure. There's no outrage, so we don't see these kinds of protests. But I do know that labor unrest is apparently on the way to Ontario. We've got OPSU now in strike position. We've got the elementary teachers now in strike position, and we've got the Wynne government saying, hey, there's no money in the till for you guys, so don't expect anything. So I'm not sure what it's going to do and what kind of noise they'll actually make. There seems to be there's two different kinds of rules depending on which government is in play.
Well, to some extent, yes, but remember the Ray days and the outrage at that. Part of the thing, the fire is a bit gone out of the union movement because, you can only bang your head against reality so long before you end up with a headache. It doesn't break. And the fact that governments are living beyond their means is becoming more and more evident. Public sympathy is waning. The public was a lot more willing to believe that kind of stuff 20 years ago, but they've seen in the meantime that the public sector just keeps bloating up, and the private sector has been belt tightening, there have been layoffs, we're not getting raises, and over in the public sector, they're just demanding that when they're already making more money than we are, and they've got these lavish defined benefit pensions, and they've got enormous job security, they want more of the cake. And the public's just fed up with it. Public services aren't that great. We're concerned, at least some of us are, about the looming demographic issues. So these people they're basically preaching to the choir, and the choir is getting smaller. So I think this union threat has as much desperation about it as it does genuine menace.
Yeah, but it does get good play in the media. They will give them the headlines, and if you're a low information voter, you'll pick up on that. And woe is me to the public sector worker, which apparently feels like it's been very much picked on for whatever reason. It does get play in the media.
Yeah, and you're right. Often these workers do feel victimized. I'm astounded. Teachers in Ontario, 11 years on the job, they're making $90,000. I'll tell you what, the guys and gals working in restaurants and garages and even in banks aren't doing that. And yet the teachers see themselves as victims. And I always say, hey, I'll bet you could find people willing to trade places with you in a heartbeat who do at least as good a job as you are. So you come out here and you start delivering pizza and see what the pizza guy can do in a classroom.
Yeah,
but again, I don't worry too much about the low information voter. When the media consistently do things that are not credible, they hurt their own credibility. The legacy media being a mouthpiece for public sector unions is a bad thing for them.
Yeah.
But the public by now, it fuels cynicism, but cynicism means declining subscription rates and things like that. It's just not a good policy not to come clean with people about what they already know is happening. But on the plus side, there was a piece recently in the Ottawa Citizen by Kelly Egan, who was saying, I'm no right-winger, but he said, I noticed that my bills just keep going up, my water bill, my sewer bill. What is going on, and mentioning that without having to be like a zany anti-tax guy like, say, me, that he's really worried about the fact that government just keeps chomping on his wallet. And if Kelly Egan is worried about that, so are a lot of people. When Sid Ryan comes out and goes, it's 1968 out there, people are going to go, what are you, nuts?
Yeah, well, when they started looking at Sid Ryan's books, he got all of a sudden very quiet in recent months. But hey, look, over the holidays, my husband came to me and he said, the mail guy is standing at the door. I think he wants a tip for Christmas. I'm a generous gal, John, but my jaw hit the floor and I said, tip? That guy is getting a pension and will be retired at 50. That's his Christmas gift from me this year. That guy's got a huge pension.
Go get a tip from him, yeah. Hey, buddy, got to spare a dime.
There you go. All right, John, we'll leave it there. We'll see where this story takes us.